Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome into the video, welcome into the channel. Hope everybody's doing well out there. And as we enter 2025, I certainly wish everyone out there watching a happy, healthy, and prosperous 2025. So what I want to do in this video is kind of provide an update to something that I've talked about in a recent video. But the topic here is going to be talking about this problem I've been having with my LG G4 and PlayStation 5 Pro on HDMI 3, which is where I've had the console connected since I've had both items here. By the time I hit this home screen here, I have to go ahead and press the settings button on the remote and check out what's going on with the information. And that's going to be the very first part of the problem. At the tier level that the G4 is, and with Sony's premier console, the PlayStation 5 Pro, the very first thing I should not have to do when I get to the home screen is to pull up the dashboard to make sure that the information is reporting correctly. And what information is that? The resolution, and to a lesser extent, the frames per second. So if you haven't seen any of the prior videos, I'll give you a quick synopsis of what's going on. Every time I load into it on HDMI 3, I get to this screen right here. I have to pull up the dashboard. At any given startup, okay, there's no way for me to accurately predict when this is going to happen. At any given time I fire up both items here, I might be met with the information you're seeing here, which is accurate, which is 2160p at a locked 60 frames per second. This is good. This is what I'm looking for, and this is what's supposed to happen every time. But that's not what happens every time. There are certain times I do this same process, and I'll look over there and that resolution will be 1440p at 60 frames per second. That's wrong. For some reason, the resolution is being forced down to either 1440 or 1080p, whether it be on the home screen or before that. The first time I discovered this problem, it was happening when I was going into, say, a game like Call of Duty. I get to the home screen, I have to pull up this dashboard, you see what's going on right there, everything looks good. I have to leave this up and go into the game of choice, which will be like Call of Duty, right? And then Call of Duty will do 2 handshakes. And I'm going to do a demonstration of this as we go along. Call of Duty will do 2 handshakes. The problem doesn't occur on the first handshake. The problem is what is the information on the second one. And this will determine whether I have a good or accurate gaming session or not. Once that second handshake happens, either the resolution will stay at 2160p or it will be driven down to 1440 or even 1080. Once this setup determines that it's 1440 or 1080, there's nothing I can do to get it to change out of that. In other words, I can change inputs. I could switch to, say, HDMI 1, which is where the Apple TV 4K is, and then switch back, it's gonna stay. I can turn off the console and the display, turn both back on, it's still gonna force itself down. The only way that I've gotten this to correct itself and go back to being 2160p is by unplugging the console and connecting it to HDMI 4, which is basically an open port for me. I don't have anything permanently connected to it. Once I turn on the TV, turn on the console, it syncs up, says, okay, PS5 Pro, G4, we're good. I can immediately turn everything back off, reconnect it to HDMI 3, and we're good to go until the next time it happens. That kind of catches you up on the problem in itself, is the fact that I have to babysit the resolution. Let me kind of now bring you up to speed on where we are currently here a couple of weeks later from a calendar's perspective of the last time I talked about this topic. I certainly have not gamed every day since then. As a matter of fact, I haven't even gamed half the days since then because it's the holidays, family, all of that kind of stuff, right? So after I filmed that last video, I had a choice to make. I could start testing, I could move the console to another display, do all these things. I'm gonna be real with you. I was feeling really lazy. And at the end of the day, all I wanna do is have this connected to an HDMI port on this display that I can turn on the display, I can turn on the console, and I don't have to pull up that dashboard and wonder if the resolution is correct, all right? So what I decided to do is let me just connect it full time to HDMI 4. I don't have anything connected in there, so it's not like I have to play musical chairs with my electronics. So let me just connect it over there and just see how it does. Full time. Well, what I can tell you is out of the handful of times that I've come in here and turned on a display, had some gaming sessions, I am happy to report that I have had zero problem. The forced resolution problem, blackouts, nothing. It has worked perfectly as I would expect at this level of equipment. But see, that doesn't really solve the issue, does it? That doesn't really answer the issue, in my opinion, because there are three things to consider here about this problem, okay? And two of them are variables and one of them is a constant. The two variables in this equation are going to be the HDMI port that it was on, which is HDMI 3, and the cable. The one constant is the PlayStation 5 Pro. And from this limited amount of testing and experience, what I can share with you is that since I have moved the console over to HDMI 4, not with the cable that was on 3, by the way, this is on a different cable, the same type of cable, but not the same one. By just moving the console, unplugging it from 3 and plugging it into 4, I have had zero problems at all. No issues of any kind. That still leaves the two variables that I mentioned earlier, that while that solves the problem on the surface of I just want to turn on my display, turn on the console and have a gaming session and not have to manage the resolution, that doesn't completely solve the issue because there's still obviously something going on HDMI 3. I still have not narrowed it down to whether it's a cable or an HDMI port problem on the display. The one thing that I feel pretty confident in ruling out is that it's a console problem. At this point, I'm thinking it's either cable or HDMI port specific, meaning back to the display. So what I've done is I've actually decided to connect my regular PS5 up to HDMI 3. All right, let me pull that back up for dramatic effect so you can see what's connected. HDMI 1, Apple TV 4K, HDMI 2, eARC, that's my receiver, HDMI 3, which is the problem port, it has the base PS5, and then HDMI 4 has the Pro on it now, okay? So let me get rid of that. Let me pull up the dashboard over here. And this is the problem port. And as you can see here, information is reporting correctly. This is what's supposed to happen on this. So I kept the base PS5 because I want to continue my game testing of comparing gaming on the base PS5 versus the PS5 Pro and doing kind of game comparisons on what I'm seeing that's different, what sort of upgrades to expect, etc. between the two. But now I have another reason for keeping this base PS5, which is to see if I have this problem pop up on the base PS5, because this has the cable that's in question and this has the port that's in question. So if at any given time I turn on this base PS5 or I even go into Call of Duty or something to test it out and it drives the resolution down, that's one step closer to narrowing down what's going on. The other part of this is if I do encounter the issue, if it does pop up again with this console, I will change the cable. I will probably run out and get like a $50 HDMI cable from a local retailer, stupid or not. That way, in my mind, I can kind of narrow it down from the cable or the display. And if the problem happens again after putting this other cable on, now I can reasonably narrow it down to being a LG G4 problem and more specifically an HDMI 3 problem. And at that point, I'll have a decision on my hands. Now, to most of you, you would think immediately, or maybe even before I do any of this, oh, you need to engage LG, because I did mention in the prior video, I purchased this directly from LG. I didn't buy it through a retailer or a third party. So you might be thinking I should already engage them, but let me kind of share with you why I really don't want to do that. So at the time of filming this, this is January 1, 2025. And what that means is we are right around the corner from the 2025 models coming out, okay? So we're pretty damn late in the cycle for the 2024 models, even for a high-end one like the G4 here. Here's what I fear will take place. I can engage LG, I can explain the problem to them, I can show them video of the problem, I can send them pictures, whatever they want. They're likely to do one of two things. One, they're going to want to send a technician out here, which means I have to schedule time, make sure that I'm available around my full-time work and all that. Got to make sure, you know, with the kids and everything, I got to make sure everything's squared away for a technician to come here and to test and determine and see the same problem that I'm telling all of you about, okay? In other words, they need to see it for themselves and maybe try and do some sort of quick fix. Or they might determine that we're so far into the cycle and they may not want to even mess with that. They might just offer me a replacement. The problem with this idea is, what do you think the odds are that the replacement that they're going to send me, and we essentially do a swap here, what do you think the odds are that I'm going to get a brand new unboxed retail basically version of an LG G4, like if I went into a Best Buy or if I ordered another one off the LG website? What do you think the odds are that that's what I'm going to get? I'm going to put them very low. What I think will happen is I'll be sent out a refurbished one, okay? One that's been sent back like mine and in their minds repaired and then sent out to me. Let me explain to you why that's a problem for me. Because part of the experience of buying these high-end displays for me personally, and maybe I'm weird for this, part of that experience is getting one that I know has never been unboxed and unboxing it for the first time and setting it up and being the first owner. That's part of the experience for me. And it will bother me to no end if I am sent one out that is a refurbished unit, meaning it's at minimum been unboxed because you had to have a problem to recertify it in the beginning, right? Or the first place. It's just the fact that I might take this one down for these issues that I'm mentioning. It gets sent back, I get a new one, and it's not a new one, it's a refurbished one. And that will bother me. For a lot of you, it won't. What matters to you is that, you know, the display works properly. But for me, that's not the entire story. So having said that, having mentioned, and I'm going to go back over to the other one. Let's go to the part of the video where I start doing some testing here. So let's go back. Okay, let's get you to wake up. Let's pull up the dashboard. Okay, still reporting correctly. This is the part of the video where I want to do a live test here. And that way I can walk you through what's going on. So I'm going to go to Call of Duty and you're going to see two screen flashes, meaning two handshakes. It's the second handshake that we want to pay attention to. So here we go. There's number one. Okay. Number two, this is the one. Boom. 2160p, and it should be a floating 120 frames per second over there because VRR is on and I don't have this in 120 mode. So you'll see it momentarily move around. Matter of fact, there we go. So it's going to start moving around, especially when I get to this menu. And there you go. All right, so let's get out of this and let's test another one here. And as you can see here, it's going to do another handshake and it goes right back to 2160p at 60. So let's head into college football. And we're going to get a handshake and it's reporting dead on. Okay, so we have 2160 at 60 FPS, VRR on, so there may be some fluctuations there. But the point being that it's working properly. This is the basic level of expectation here. So let's go back to the home screen. All right, and for the next round here, let's go back to the base PS5. No, let's get off that. Let's go back to the base PS5. Let's get the dashboard pulled up here and let's do our first test here with the base. All right. So we'll start off with an easy one. There's a handshake and it's working correctly. Okay, good news there. I'll let the main menu here load up a little bit. And then we'll go in and the real test is going to be what happens on Call of Duty. And because this is such an intermittent problem, it may work perfectly fine in this video, okay? But at some given point in the future, if the problem is not within the console itself, it will absolutely resurface on this input or this cable. So let's see what we get here. Handshake 1, handshake 2. That looked like handshake 3, 4. How many are we gonna get? This is what I'm talking about. I'm so glad it did that. You see all that craziness? All right, let's get past this. All right, so we're seeing 2160 at 60 frames per second. All right, let's get through all this. I just want to get back to that menu screen and then we're gonna go into the settings and check some things out. Now, it's doing all this weird stuff because I had to perform an update for the game because this is not my primary gaming console. You see the handshakes though. We're getting the handshakes in real time here. Let's see what we get. Man, look at how many handshakes are going on. See, there's something not right. You saw it only did the 2 on the other console. Now the good news here is that it's reporting correctly. That 2160 is still there. All right, let's get out of that. Let's go back into the home screen here. That way we can get the little menu, you know, the zombie guy walking. 4K 60, all right? So let's head on over here to graphics. Let's see what's going on here. The 120 Hertz mode is off, okay? This is also how you could tell this is the base PS5 versus the PS5 Pro, by the way. When you turn off this switch, the 120 mode, you're at 4K lock 60 now. But anyway, let's turn it back on. It's gonna create more handshakes. And there we go. So, there you have it. You see it's still floating around, by the way, right? But there you have it. You saw it in time there. Something's going on with HDMI 3 and or this cable. Even on this other console, it did multiple handshakes, multiple, to get to the menu screen. And by the way, when I had the PS5 Pro connected over there, it never does more than 2. It'll do the 2, and then either the resolution's forced down or it works properly. That did like, I'll have to go back and count. It did at least 4, and it did it twice. That's crazy, man. So I'm glad I got to do a live demonstration for you here on camera, having both consoles going so you could see exactly what happens in the process. And I'll mention before I get out of here on this video, I mirrored the settings for the display and the console as close as I could, so that way everything is like for like, no tricks, no differences here. I'm trying to line them up as accurately and closely as possible. That way I can try and replicate the problem on one or both ports to determine what's going on. So based on that last video, I made a promise to you all that if I saw enough likes, enough comments stating you wanted to see how this played out, I'd do some follow-up videos, I'd do some testing, and so I wanted to uphold my end of that. But I also want to let you know that the handful of gaming sessions I've had over the holiday break here, you might call it, I've had exactly 0 problems, 0, on HDMI 4 PS5 Pro. Let's get it pulled back up. You can see it's working beautifully, and I've played a number of these games. You know, I've headed into most all these and just messed around, played around, and I'm having an excellent experience with it on 4. Now, that's not me promising that everything's fixed, okay? Because there could be a time a month from now, 2 months from now, 2 days from now, this problem could pop up on HDMI 4, and I'll be right back here behind the camera talking to you about it too. For the sake of this video, I just wanted to do a follow-up. I wanted to run a couple of tests for you to show you between both inputs and the differences that I'm encountering between HDMI 3 and HDMI 4. There's a big difference between the performance of what's going on, and I've got 2 different consoles going, 2 different HDMI cables obviously, and the only differences here, the constants are the consoles, and the variables here are the HDMI ports and the cables. So I think that's going to wrap up this video. If you did enjoy it, you found it helpful, you found it entertaining, you want to see more from me, click subscribe, click the bell, and click like. These are 3 things that are going to show me, let me take that back. I don't know about you clicking the bell. Clicking subscribe and clicking like shows me that you like this sort of content, you are in a similar situation, and you want to see how this plays out and what kind of fix I come up with. These are going to show me you want to see more of this. As I get the hiccups at the end of this video, good grief. Do those 2 things, help support my channel. I really want to grow the channel here in 2025. I have a lot of fun recording these videos and talking to you all in the comments section. I'd love to get this channel bigger so that I can do some live streaming. I think it'd be really fun to kind of set up a live stream in here and just game and chat with you and, you know, kind of in real time about these issues. That'd be a lot of fun. but I need the channel to grow in order for me to start to get to that point, I think. So anyway, that's going to do it. Again, Happy New Year to you all. I'll have some more videos coming. If you're still watching, I appreciate it. Little sneak peek into what to expect. While I've certainly encountered a handful of issues with this G4, I'm going to say it in this video. This is the best display I've ever owned from a picture quality perspective, and I wouldn't trade that for anything I've had prior. But what to expect going forward, I'm ready to start doing some settings videos. The way I have my gaming settings set up for the PS5 Pro is going to be quite different than my gaming settings videos on my C2. I'm just going to put that out there. Quite a bit different. And if you care about that, maybe you're going to get a G4, you're going to want to tune in and see how I have this set up because it's different. It's way different for me, okay? So anyway, that's going to do it. Again, I appreciate you watching. And as always, until the next one.